Hey guys, welcome to my live cast again. So we're going to do some number crunching today, some fact checking because it's easy to throw out stats that favor your narrative without actually including important stats that might say otherwise. And there's also rumors going around. Actually, one thing that a viewer sent me was a list of pilot deaths in 2021 versus the previous 2 years. And so that was from the Pilots Association. I actually reached out to them today, got a response. So we're going to show you guys that response and clear up some rumors when things get shared virally online and appear one way, then they actually end up being another way. Okay, also, Joe Biden is, he posts on Instagram bragging about job creation in his first 10 months. We're going to go over the numbers on who's really working and who's not. There's some key numbers. What people don't like to look at is the segment of people actually in the labor force. People don't realize that the people not in the labor force are actually not included in the unemployment numbers. So I'm going to show you guys what that's all about. So anytime you hear about unemployment in the future, you can remember to factor in what they're not telling you about how many people really are not working. So we're going to talk about that, and we are also going to talk about suicides. There's been talk about whether suicides increased in the pandemic, and I just got news this morning that someone I know committed suicide on Saturday, which was pretty shocking. And so it's been a rough period for a lot of people, and it has caused some people to, cut their lives short, which is horrible. So we're going to talk about suicides and actually look at the suicide rate in the United States and what we know so far about that. Before we get into it, I want to shout out sponsor this video, which is Keto with Ivory. Weight management is a universal struggle. After we turn 20, the struggle becomes harder. This is because our body's metabolism slows by as much as 4% each decade. This is why I highly recommend Keto with Ivory. This amazing powder helped me lose more weight in a shorter period of time than anything that I've tried. Now, if you guys follow me on Instagram, you know what I was for Halloween. I was young Britney Spears, not old Britney Spears, the super fit Britney Spears. So I had to get ripped out of my mind. And I will tell you, I literally consumed a bag of this, a whole supplement bag of Keto with Ivory over the course of October. And actually, I whipped into shape really easily without getting hungry. So there's something to this stuff. Anyway, that's not in the script. Here's what is in the script. If you want to help support your weight loss, you'll love Keto with Ivory. Get up to 51% off for the next 24 hours by going to ketowithivory.com or by clicking the link below in my description. Keto with Ivory. Check it out. It honestly tastes like cake, you guys. It's freaking delicious. Yeah, so what's up, guys? Checking the comments. Thanks, guys. I was like, dude, I'm gonna wear something colorful today because there's too many people, too much heaviness in this world. I'm gonna be colorful. And then I find out that this person I know died. I was invited to a funeral and was told to wear bright colors like pink or purple. And I was like, wow, I already have that on. Which bright colors make you happier in gloomy days. So that's what it is. What's up? I love we need Ivory merch. Yeah, that's I'm gonna get to that for sure. I like the nickname you guys call me, Ivory Mectin. I was thinking of making some merch about that, but the merch makers might not like that. The merch makers work with YouTube. You know how YouTube feels about Ivory Mectin. They don't like it. Anyway, so I want to talk about let's look at the suicides. So as I was thinking about suicide today, and like, gosh, I just lost someone to suicide, and like, what is the real deal on suicide? Because we're hearing suicide increased in the pandemic. Did it? So I actually, looking at the CDC website, I found something very interesting about suicide. Before we get to the actual numbers for 2020, this is a breakdown by industry and occupation. And what nobody talks about in regards to suicide is that the that manual labor men are dropping like flies to suicide. I mean, if you're going to compare them to any other group, men are committing suicide. Men who work with their hands are committing suicide more than any other group. This was a pretty shocking thing to me. Mining, quarrying, oil and gas extraction, males is the number one suicide group. 54 men out of every 100,000 commit suicide. Then it's construction. Then automotive repair, men. It's all men. Agriculture, forestry, fishing, hunting, men. Transportation, warehousing, men. Those are the top five industry and occupation groups to be killing themselves. So I was like, wow. If you look at corporate news headlines, they're talking about how about Black people committing suicide and kids, and like young kids committing suicide. But actually, these are the 2019 data. Men are really the group who are committing suicide, and it's these adult men who work with their hands, they do not like to ask for help or admit that they're struggling. So I think that's pretty sucky. Like, we should support those guys. Like, dude, just be willing to get some help. Okay, so then I come to this leading cause of death in the United States. So suicide is the 10th biggest cause of death in the United States. 2019, 47,000 people committed suicide. So there's all these detailed breakdowns, but everything only goes up to 2019. I'm like, what about 2020? We're at the end of 2021 right now. We should be able to see 2020 numbers at this point. But this is the NIH. Previous website was CDC, and it's all 2019, 2019. It's interesting. Like with COVID, I mean, we're getting minute to minute details, but when it comes to suicides, it's like, well, 2 years later, we still don't have the latest data on suicides. Like, what's really going on with suicides? But overall, heart disease is the number one killer of Americans. Then malignant neoplasm, which is cancer, tumor cancer. Then unintentional injury, et cetera. But suicide is the number one, or number 10, just beat out by the flu, no less. Except that once the new illness came around, we all know the flu went away. It went from being the 9th biggest killer of Americans to not killing anyone. If you look at the CDC data, very interesting. The flu kills no one anymore, according to the CDC. But suicides, we only know what they're doing up until 2019, really. Although, if we progress here, I was able to find something in regards to some preliminary data in regards to 2020. And let's see if we can show you guys this. Looky here. Despite stress of pandemic, U.S. suicide rate dropped in 2020, USNews.com reports, U.S. News and World Report. So despite the anxieties and tumult of the COVID-19 pandemic, overall suicide rates in the United States fell by 3% between 2019 and 2020. They're actually citing a preliminary study from the CDC, but this is preliminary data. So with a lot of suicides, the issue is that it's actually harder to determine whether someone intended to kill themselves or whether it was accidental. So sometimes suicides can take the longest to really diagnose whether it was a suicide. And I actually learned this when I was still working at Fox, and I pitched the story of suicides, and was able to talk with the medical examiner's office about how this works as far as finding out suicide numbers and what was really happening in the pandemic. Um, and let me just show you. I'll just be super transparent with you on what I learned from them if I can. Oh, yes, let me show you my email inbox. So, this is actually an attachment that the medical examiner's office sent me. Um, these include all deaths that they had investigated. This is Harris County, where I was located, which is the third most populous county in America, uh, behind Los Angeles and where Chicago, LA and Chicago, and then Houston is number three. New York City is broken into smaller boroughs. So, anyway, so this is a seat of Houston where we're looking at these deaths, and if we search suicide, we can see that um, 542 people were determined to have died of suicide in the county in 2020. Um, undetermined. Search that, and you get 209 people that they're still trying to figure out how they died. That's for 2020. For 2019, where are we here? For 2019, we find that 526, so slightly fewer people in 2019 had been determined to have died of suicide. Undetermined comes out to 279 in 2019. So interestingly, there were more people in 2019 that were undetermined 2 years later. Yeah, this was 2021 that I was requesting this data, and granted, it was early 2021, but the 2019 stuff should have been figured out. 2020, there's actually more suicides in Harris County, and still a couple hundred undetermined. If those turn out to be suicides, then it'd be a big jump. But there's at least a small increase in suicides in the third most populous county in America. Now the CDC is saying overall nationally, so far the suicide numbers are lower, but some of the data is still preliminary. Those numbers could change. Nevertheless, the U.S. News and World Report headline is already out saying suicide numbers are down, which is really hard to believe when you look at the fact that murders have been going way up. Murders and in anything, domestic incidents have gone way up. People's lives are being ripped apart. They're losing their dream jobs. First, they were losing their dream jobs because of the lockdown where businesses weren't allowed to stay open. I'm sorry, Walmart can stay open, but the mom and pop shop that sells stuff like Walmart sells at a smaller scale is banned from opening. It's like, oh, that makes sense because there's no traffic that goes through Walmart that could spread the illness, but the mom and pop shop could. Anyway, so these small businesses people had worked so hard for are suddenly shut down, and that turned people suicidal. Then there was all the domestic incidents. A lot of people, their relationships fall apart in quarantine. And I know for the person that I know who I just found out today died of suicide, their relationship fell apart in the pandemic, and that can really turn your life upside down. And so we're hearing that suicides are down. According preliminary data from the CDC says that suicides are down just a notch in the pandemic. Do you guys agree? Do you guys believe that? What do you think? They're just preliminary numbers so far. But it was just so interesting to me that this suicide hotline, these guys need to call that number. I think I'm just shocked that the suicide numbers for men are so high. Men working in things like construction, mining, agriculture are the number one suicidal group, and the data shows that the number one way to commit suicide is with a gun. So that's just, it's a sad thing. And here's the suicide hotline. But find a way to get help. Stop being so tough. That's what I say. And also, a lot of people said that so any sort of exercise actually helps a lot as well. One man said he joined yoga and it helped him. One guy started chopping wood regularly and it just completely boosted his mood. So any sort of workout can seriously help with that. Honestly, you'd be shocked. So I'm a huge proponent of fitness. It just helps in so many areas. It also prevents you from getting a bad case of the illness. Okay, I want to get to these airline pilot deaths. So let me show you this tweet that was forwarded to me. This it obviously looks like a cell phone picture of an actual magazine page, and the poster of this on Twitter says, "In Memoriam, Airline Pilots Association Deaths 2019, 2020, and 2021. RIP. See anything concerning?" So if you look at this, you can see there's only one person listed from 2019, about 6 or 7 people from 2020, and then a whole slew of people from 2021. So it's like, oh my gosh, did airline pilot deaths go way up? A viewer sent me this and was really concerned, like, why are more airline pilots dying? So I looked up the Airline Pilots Association magazine. Sure enough, this is a page from their magazine. And they got back to me with their statement, which they had previously tweeted out, and they directed me to their tweeted statement and said, "This is our response." So I will share that with you now. Here it is. In every edition of Airline Pilot Magazine, we honor ALPA pilots, both active and retired, who have flown west. Based on verified information provided by their families, we reported the loss of more pilots in both 2019 and 2020 than in 2021. We report the losses in our magazine as we receive information from the families. The information in one magazine edition does not provide a complete report of the total losses for each of the listed years. We salute every member for their service and honor their memories. So, yeah, they're basically saying that the handful of deaths from previous years that they put in that particular magazine article were just leftover deaths that happened back then that they hadn't previously known about. Like in 2019, they had reported all their 2019 deaths. And then in 2021, they found that there was one more. So they added it to this magazine edition, they're saying. And that is why it appears that more people died this year than previous years. But it's just because they had the previous deaths that they had reported in 2019, they're not going to continue publishing in 2021, only ones they didn't know about. So that's what the confusion was, apparently. And apparently fewer pilots are dying so far in 2021. So what do you know? That's what they're saying. And that's why you can't jump to conclusions. That makes sense to me. And sometimes we see people sharing things online and we're like, oh my gosh, and the corporate news lies to us anyway, so this probably is true, and then might not be true. So just gotta weigh that all out. Okay, let me show you what Joe Biden is sharing in regards to being so great for the economy. He thinks he's so beneficial to our economy. Now, he shared this. You see that tweet there? He's saying that he created more jobs than any of these previous presidents. And one viewer pointed out, where the fact checkers, restoring jobs is not creating jobs. This is embarrassing. So, also what's missing here is Barack Obama. He's listing previous presidents, but he failed to include Obama because actually, uh, the first few months of Obama, during Obama's presidency, jobs plummeted because there was the recession, and then there was really meager growth after that for Obama. But there was steady job increase with Trump, and then there was that big dip in jobs with the pandemic, and then as Trump was finishing out his presidency, jobs were all coming right back, and now jobs that were lost are continuing to come back. We're still a lot lower than the jobs we had, but all those jobs that were lost are coming back slowly. And so Biden is bragging about that, saying that he's great for the economy. But unemployment has also continued to go down some. It's actually it's getting pretty low again. But I want to show you guys the segment of the labor force that is not working. See, unemployment numbers are only in regards to people who are actively looking for work. If you have stopped looking for work and are just going to stay unemployed, you're not considered unemployed anymore, and you're not in the unemployment rate. And that is what is so deceptive about unemployment rate. So I want to show you guys a key thing to look at here. If I can find these numbers. Participation rate. Ooh. Oh, here we go. Yeah, well, right here. Labor force participation rate. You can see that it going way down. Now, here's where the pandemic came in and it really plummeted, and then it's been kind of zigzagging. So labor force participation is pretty low. Let me show you this perfect breakdown from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, because it goes right back to 1950 when women would not work. So theoretically, if you look at this now, 1950s right here, this is when women were not a part of the labor force. Here's the group over here who is not on the right, is the group who is not in the labor force at all. So back in the 50s, it would be all women. So theoretically, the group not in the labor force would be larger in the 1950s, you would think. Here's the actual unemployment rate. I wish I could point to it for you. The unemployment rate is right here. This is the total number of people considered eligible to work, which is people 16 and older, men and women 16 and older, who are not institutionalized, meaning they're not in prison, they're not in insane asylum, and they're also not active duty military. So obviously that number really grew over the years from 100 million to 260 million. You have to add 3 zeros to all these numbers. But what we saw was the people choosing not to even look for work gradually grew over the years, despite this boom where women started to look for work and participate in the labor force into the 60s. Yet the percentage of people just choosing not to be in the labor force continued to grow quite dramatically over the years. Now let's get to the part that matters with Biden. This is 2020. Now we saw that more people, when the pandemic hit, more people were not in the labor force. And this goes back to 2020. It says that 99 million people were not in the labor force as of 2020. Monthly breakdown in 2021 showed that number topped 100 million now. 100 million people are now choosing not to even look for work. That's nearly 1/3 of the entire U.S. population. That's pretty crazy. And it's not even including kids. This doesn't even include people younger than 16. So unemployment was 8%. Well, now it's gotten back down to four something. Yet the people not in the labor force is growing dramatically. So with Trump 2019, 95 million people were choosing not to look for work. By 2020 with Biden, it was 99 million, so 4 million jump, and now it's 100 million. Granted, the pandemic spurred that on, but it doesn't help that now people are getting constant stimulus checks. I know people with kids getting huge payments from the government just for doing nothing all of a sudden. Just because they have a kid and it's the pandemic, they're getting these huge payments, which encourages people not to go out and look for work. And so we're seeing this huge climb. Now, granted, over the years, it climbs every year anyway. So if you look at the Obama years, 2008 to 2016, the percentage of people choosing not to look for work, the number just dramatically grew from 79 million to 94 million between 2008 and 2016. Huge growth in people choosing not to look for work. Trump came around, and then in his 3 years, it actually grew slower, just by about 1 million. But it still grew a little bit, and now there's this big jump with the pandemic. But anyway, so saying that you're creating all these jobs when more people actually stopped even looking for work. So more jobs were created, but even more people stopped even looking for work. And that's what we need to talk about, is that less people are working. And actually, it's crazy. A lot of jobs are not even being taken. I know the restaurant industry had to incentivize with like signing bonus. They were saying, I'm going to give you a bonus for starting work here, and I'm going to pay you more. And these restaurants are already cash strapped from the pandemic themselves, from being forced not to be open for however long during the pandemic. And they try to hire back their employees, and nobody wants to go back to work. And the restaurant can't afford to raise wages because they're already suffering so much from their losses in the pandemic. But the only way to get people to work there is to raise wages, which they cannot afford. And so it's a really tough time for businesses, because the Trump checks and then the Biden checks have just been so lucrative for people who don't want to work, that literally I talked to people who are like, yeah, I literally am getting paid more from my Trump check. In 2020, they were getting paid more from their pandemic Trump check than they were from the restaurant that they used to work for. So what incentive do you have anymore to go back to that restaurant when you can play video games all day and get paid by your Trump check? Some people were getting like weekly Trump or bi-weekly Trump checks. So that's not good for this row over on the right that continues to grow. People just choosing not to be a part of the labor force anymore. You need incentives to go back to work. So we have topped 100 million for the first time ever. In the United States, a whopping 100 million people are not working. And that's not even including the kids. Of course, kids younger than 16 aren't working. But these are people 16 plus saying, I don't want to work, so I'm not going to. And Biden saying, okay, well, here's some money. Establishment Republicans and Democrats are really enjoying giving out free stimulus money. And what that's creating is a social state. And here we see it, you guys. The government's going to print money and hand it to you so that you can play video games all day. It's pretty sad. And there we have it. I just wanted to make you guys aware in the future when it comes to unemployment. Just realize that the second to the right row is the unemployment rate, but it does not include the people who are not even looking for a job. If you are unemployed and not looking, you're not considered unemployed. That's what you need to realize. So the unemployment number can be very deceptive. Okay. What's up, guys? I'm looking at your messages here. 1,200, $600, $1,400 checks. How long would that last? Over a year. No, those were just the big publicized stimulus checks that were pumped out to anyone who had filed a tax return. There were other people who were able to apply for unemployment in the pandemic and get unemployment checks. I was actually the guy that I was dating in 2020. He was one of them, and he would get like a big Trump check every week or two. I forget whether it was every week or every other week. He would get all this money from the federal government for not working. He'd play video games all day. It's like, yeah, because I lost some work in 2020. So I'm just gonna sit and play video games and mooch off the federal government. Granted, needless to say, I broke up with him. Um, but so people think, if you're not studying what's really happening, you think that these are the only checks that have been pumped out to the public. These 3 highly publicized checks. But there were other people like my ex, and then other. I know there's working moms who are not working, who are getting fed a ton of money from the government just because they have kids. And it's like you're not incentivized to go to work when the government has taken on the role of the dad in the family, and the government is saying you can be a stay-at-home mom now. Here's all the money. And getting regular checks for that. So a lot of people have gotten a lot more money in this pandemic, which encourages them not to go back to work. Great move with the BF. Yeah. Breakup season. Who's the current lucky guy? Nobody. I'm single AF, you know what I'm saying? Protest on the couch. Yeah, that's what people did. They became couch potatoes. How is that a protest? You need to go back to work. Lots of prison inmates got unemployment. You'd be surprised. And I've had friends say, it's never been easier to get free money. Just go say that go file something with the IRS saying that the pandemic impacted you. Like, I've talked to multiple friends who got huge checks from the government, like just because they filed something with the IRS, and the IRS is like, sure, here's, sure, here's some money. It's crazy. Like, they're being really reckless with the federal government's being super reckless with throwing money out to people. Would I have stayed with the ex if he dumped the free money into crypto? Possibly, but honestly, I need to see like daily ambition. I need to see someone whose heart is on fire for something in life other than video games. Like, you're going to play video games all day and drop it in crypto. That's a smart move. But then resort to playing video games while you check your phone to see how the crypto's doing. That's still not attractive to me. I need to see someone who invests and does awesome stuff investing their money, but then with that extra time they have, they're doing more, hustling after something else. We need to have ambition in life. Only if it was Doge. Let me tell you, one of my girlfriends invested in Doge like this spring, and she's like, oh my gosh, Ivory, I just made so much easy money on Doge. Like, right, she invests in Dogecoin, and then like a week later, it just jumped big time. And she's like, oh my gosh, I just cashed out. So she cashed out right away, made bank on Doge. She's like, get in, Ivory. So I was like, dude, I don't know about Doge. I'll just put 400 in. It seems like, I don't know if I can trust Doge. So let me just start with 400. I put $400 in Dogecoin. And then it went up a little bit at first, and I was like, oh cool, and now it's down to like 200, and it's just been down. Doge has just been down. Like, I literally lost half of my investment. I'm like, thank God I didn't invest more. So money printing results in inflation. Yeah, absolutely it does. Absolutely. We're on the way to serious inflation. And that's what's really concerning. And that's what another one of Biden's trolls wrote. It's so funny when Biden posts on Instagram, if you look at the comment section, it's just full of trolls. Like nobody likes Biden. And one of the top comments was like, okay, now let's do a chart on inflation in each presidency because we all know inflation's going to be the worst in Biden's. So, yeah. Doge is trash, you're saying. Yes, guys. For me, it is. Yeah, I lost money in Doge. I've made bank in Bitcoin and Ethereum, though. Ethereum, whew, guys, I first invested in Ethereum in November 2020 when it was at about 500 bucks. Needless to say, my Ethereum investment is doing amazing. What is it like? It's over like 4,000 now. So it's grown a whole lot. Okay, what if video games is his passion and they make money? Well, you know what? He was not making any money on video games, so and I'm not attracted to people who make money on video games. Yeah, I guess YouTube is hiding the thumb down count. That tells me that you gave me a thumbs down. Oh, thanks a lot. But no, I don't know why they're doing it. I'm like, whatever, dude. Anyway, so yeah, Bitcoin and Ethereum, I would recommend investing in those right now. Rumor has it, I need to do a video on investing because word on the street from people who invest that I know is that bad things are on the way for the stock market based on a big crash that just happened in China that's not being talked about, and it's going to ripple over to the United States in the coming months. And it's supposed to. My source says it's going to be really bad. So he's also saying that Bitcoin is going to go down with the stock market, but I'm guessing that more people, I mean, when inflation's out of control, stocks are crashing, I'm going to guess that Bitcoin is going to be a lot more stable at that point. I think I envision people going over to Bitcoin, pulling their money out of stocks and putting it into Bitcoin, the currency that cannot be controlled by governments. Not even the creator of Bitcoin can manipulate it. That's how he designed it. So I imagine that Bitcoin is probably going to be doing pretty well. I think it just took a dip recently, but he's saying it's going to go down further due to China, but I think it's going to be where people are going to, it's going to be their safe haven for their money. Yeah, the guy I was talking to, my source, he says that it is going to be another recession, which is not cool. Not cool, guys. We've been through enough. Maybe he's wrong. We shall see. We shall see. We shall see. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I have for you. Have a great one. And don't let the numbers manipulate you. And that's all I have to say. We'll see you. Oh, we'll see you tomorrow. Here's the update. Truth Bombs with Ivory and Jenny is going to be back. We're going to do mimosas and Truth Bombs at 10 a.m. tomorrow, 10 a.m. Central, Jenny and I. We're starting our weekend early tomorrow. So join us. Jennifer Sebasagari. We're going to talk all about the news and life and our exes. She knows about my video game ex. Oh my gosh, you're saying your ex suicided herself recently. Yeah, well, like I said, I just found out that the person I know suicided themselves on Saturday. I was just told that this morning, which is why I wanted to talk about suicides today and let you guys know that actually the number one group of people committing suicide is adult men who work in manual labor. And no matter who you are, you need to be willing to go and get some help. Get a therapist. Go to Google therapist. Find a therapist in your area, set up an appointment. Okay, tons of people have therapists. Just do it. We don't want you suiciding yourself. If you're struggling with anything, get a freaking therapist. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal to have a therapist. All right. So that's all I have to say. Positive vibes only. Surround yourself with positivity. We'll all get through this together. We'll talk to you later.